Hello, brothers. It's been just another day. Another go around the hamster wheel. It's all this action can take place, and it may seem that you're in the same place. Kind of like a hamster wheel, you output energy, you output movement, but you don't move. But just because you don't move location doesn't mean nothing happened, right? Like, if you put a human on a hamster wheel for long enough, they would lose weight, right? Or a hamster would lose weight, or So I think that actually it's a good example of patience. Is like this. Sometimes you just have to do the repetitive thing over and over for an extended period of time to really see anything, right? To know any benefits. I wonder if this will go. I don't know. Yeah, I guess. And that's definitely where I'm at right now. It's definitely repetitive, and that's okay. I'm not really bothered by it. It's good mental practice, because since not many physical things are changing, I get to really examine what's in my life. And if something's bothering me, it's extremely easy to pick it out because there's only so many things happening, right? Like especially with work, right? Like, if I'm getting upset, it's like, well, I know what else, everything that has happened today. There's only and generally it's around people. It's extremely obvious because most of my time is spent by myself, and when I'm by myself, I can regulate my mood pretty efficiently. Not with 100% success rate, but pretty good. But when it's pretty common that if I feel any kind of way, really, it's because somebody said something, didn't say something, did something, or didn't do something, right? And then you can, as soon as you have the awareness of okay, yeah, that's what caused this, well then you know exactly where to start. Maybe you don't have to, talk to them and be like, hey, don't do this, do that, say this, don't say that. But maybe it's how you need to think about it, How do you need to think about it to not get triggered? How do you need to think about it how can you think about it in the future to not have that cause an emotion? Because that's really, it doesn't really matter if something annoys you if instantly you diffuse it with thoughts and you get back to it, right? If somebody annoys you and you can diffuse it immediately, and a minute later that event literally you don't even remember that it happened because you let it go. You let it go immediately. Who gives a fuck, right? And that's the ultimate, when somebody says to be like water, right? To be fluid, to be just to have your energy, but you can be reactive, and you're gonna find the path of least resistance, right? We don't always want to do the path of least resistance. That's debatable, right? But if you're trying to work out, that's what I'm thinking of, working out. You need resistance for that to be effective, but there's also less less strenuous ways you can work out and still be effective. If you're just trying to get cardio in, yeah, you can get on a treadmill, you can run around the block, or you can find some kind of game you like right now pickleball and tennis and all these like badminton sports are getting really popular, and I'm sure like all I've ever heard is that when you find a sport that you really like, or like basketball or football, soccer, whatever, or football, whatever, I'm American, so it's soccer. You can, if you find something you love doing that requires cardio, that's the path of least resistance, right? Like, don't do the fucking treadmill if you hate doing the treadmill and you love doing tennis. Why would you fucking pick the harder path? Like, life isn't all about suffering. Like, we suffer enough in our minds. Like, you need, like, it's also like, you need a little bit of joy in life. Now, I don't know if you should pursue joy directly, but you should pursue, things that you're not going to regret. I suppose is one way you can, like, certainly you will not regret. And it's hard, that's a tall order, because, until you've done something, you don't really know if you're going to regret it or not. But, there are certain decisions you can make that if you ask yourself, like, could I regret this? It's going to be pretty fucking obvious that you could. Like, you don't know, but you might regret it. Like, doing hard drugs, right? Like, if you did heroin or you did meth and you asked yourself before, could I regret this? If you seriously can sit here and tell me that you 100% knew that you wouldn't regret it, I think you're lying to me and to you. So, I guess that's part of this journey, is you have to developing accountability and honesty. Like, it's actually really beautiful that something can be your fault. It's actually one of the most beautiful things, because you can only change things that are your fault. Like, if you are genuinely victimized and you literally can do nothing about it, then what? That's not a position anyone wants to be in. But mostly that's a position in the mind, because even some of the people in concentration camps, there was a stark difference between the people who had given up and the people who had decided to live, right? And that was one of the things that they studied, was the people who decided they were going to live. They just, not only did their bodies, like, they literally looked healthier, and the guards knew who decided because of the way they walked, the way they carried themselves, the way they ate, etc. It's very important to make these decisions, and it's all in the way you think. But that's accountability. That's not just handed to you. It can be handed to you. Like, your parents can give you on I don't know if I want to say like a silver platter, but like, if you're taught from a very young age a way to think which is effective at resolving problems, and how to maintain a positive outlook, you're gonna be way better off than somebody whose parents complained all the time, or had a victim mentality. It's just, but even if your parents did give you a victim mentality, that doesn't mean you get to, it remains your fault as an adult, right? If you have a victim mentality as an adult, you need to realize that, okay, I can change this. And the way you change it is by choosing different words. That's literally it, right? If something happens and your first thing to do is blame someone else, or think of why it cannot happen, or what is going to go wrong, that's your first instinct. I'm not saying shame yourself into oblivion for having that thought, because your parents gave it to you. Somebody gave it to you. Maybe you gave it to yourself when you didn't know better, but you know better now. So when that thought comes, be aware of it, see it. Be like, okay, that's what I just said. I just said that this person is always holding me back. That's what they just said. That's what I just said to myself. You know, whatever it is. And then you need to counter it. You need to take however long it takes to formulate a sentence which is true and positive, that counters that, that the message your your unconscious gave you. You need to counter this. And you're gonna do that the first time, and you might be discouraged because guess what? That first thought is probably gonna come back. The disempowering thought is probably gonna happen again. Well, guess what? You just do it again. You counter it again. You find the most opposite thing, which is also true. Now, it's important when you're doing this you don't just want to say the most opposite thing, right? Like, let me think of an example. I don't really think this way, so it's gonna be harder for me to think of an example. But like, I'll give. So one of my buddies was my buddy. He got fired for drinking on the job, right? And when he told me about it, he said, well, everyone does it. Everybody drinks on the job, right? So his first thought was, this is bullshit. Everybody's doing it. This isn't my fault. It's not my fault that I got fired. So you have to step back and realize, well, I drank. I made a decision which gave them a window to fire me, like, and legitimately, like, it's not rocket science to know that if you're drunk on the job, you can get fired. I don't think anybody's gonna, it doesn't matter if people get away with it. Maybe, whatever. But you have to repeat that. Like, I'm trying to think of, because that's like a real world example. Like, you need something you can lean on, like, it's just like a thought. Okay. I have a habit of calling myself retarded, right? Like, when I do something, like I forget something or whatever, like, I'm quick to degrade myself. But what I'll do when I say that is I'll catch it. That's the first thing I do. I realize that I am degrading myself, and guess what? I'm not retarded. I am smart. I am pretty smart. So, I'm not the smartest, but I am not retarded, okay? So, like, we don't need to say that. Like, but my body is going to automatically try to say that. So, the way to get it to stop doing that is every time that it does do it, say, well, that's not true. I am intelligent, right? That's what we do. You just counter it. And you over and over and over and over and over. And eventually, your brain's like, okay, I don't want to waste any more fucking energy saying I'm retarded if we're going to spend more energy every time saying we're not. So guess what? We're not retarded. We're smart. We're intelligent. We make good decisions. You just keep saying positive things over and over and over. And eventually, the old programs get weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker until they're gone. And then you're at this like neutral level where there might not be anything. And that's when you can really, like, as you're going through life, you'll notice moments where you make a good decision, where I make a good decision. And that's when you highlight, that's when you compliment yourself on that good decision, right? Like, when you do something well that you've required, or when I've done something well, and I, like, when I notice it, I can be like, that was good, I noticed this. And eventually, that's how you build an identity, right? So you just, and that's, an identity is crucial, but like, you just repetitively go after it. And eventually you shift out of the neutral from negative, you hit the neutral, and then you start going into the positive in your unconscious mind. And that's when you don't have to really like try, right? Like eventually your unconscious is just in that program. Like one thing that I've been saying often is that I'm lucky. And I always say it when something happens that is fortunate. But I say it a lot. And I always say something's easy. And, you know, there's all these things, like, I want life to be easy and effortless. And I want to be lucky. And all these things, right? So you have to say them. And the more you say them, you know, like, the more your unconscious is like, okay, we can stop saying these things, and in exchange for stop saying these things, we're just going to write these into the base model, you know, the foundational program, so we can fucking, you know, stop talking about it because of calories. Now, when you're doing this, there's one like little thing that's important to remember, and that is, let's say, like in my example of I'm retarded, right? That's an example. If you're just starting, what you shouldn't say is I'm a genius. I'm the smartest man alive. You don't counter with something like, if I would have said that, like that's too unbelievable, and it actually causes like cognitive dissonance. And your body knows you're lying. So that's why you meet it with this middle ground of like, no, I'm smart. I'm an intelligent person, right? Maybe don't say smart. You know, like, no, I'm an intelligent person. I can make good decisions. I am capable of these things, right? Which are true statements, but they're a little more like ambiguous, and you know, like it doesn't really matter how, like you can work your way up to the more powerful words. Like genius, if you really desired to be a genius, you could work your way up. Like I can say I am capable of, I could train myself to be a genius. That is true. You can improve your cognitive abilities, and I could do it for long enough that I could become a genius one day. That is a true statement, right? But that's any further than that right now in my life would not, like, you know, would not be true. Like I don't see the results in my life. I may be a genius in some areas that I'm, you know, unconscious of, or less aware of, I guess you could say. But you know, I'm not a genius in ways that materialize success. Maybe in mental success, maybe I can be that. You know, like that feels more true than physical success. But yeah, you know, like this is a gradual journey. We just walk through it. And don't be too aggressive with these things, because the aggressiveness can backfire. So we take baby steps. And that's something I've been working on a lot recently. It's just like, how do I do this slowly? And how can I not overdo this? Because every time I've ever overdone it, it just backfires. Like that, you have to like whittle away at. That's why the uniparty, one world government, whatever you want to call the ruling class, you know, the way that they control all of society, right? They make incremental changes, but they're the best at it, because they're doing it on generational timescales, right? Like they're okay if one tiny change takes 20 years, right? Like that's how, like if you have some foundational problem and you need to take 20 years to fix it, that's okay, right? Like that might be your path. there's probably other areas where you can go faster, but don't be afraid to start small. Start as small as you can imagine, right? And then if you really whatever amount is almost humiliating to start at small is probably where you want to start, because that means it's so fucking easy to do that of course you can do it, and you'll probably end up doing more, but the requirement is really small, right? And then you can just the next day up the rep by 1. Well, guess what? If you follow that protocol, in 365 days, you'll be at 365 reps per day, which is realistically for most things is way too many fucking reps, right? So if you really zoom things out, if you're pretty much no matter what age you are, right? If you're trying to make changes, you probably would agree that you're at least gonna be alive for a couple more years, right? I'm 27. Unless something which is out of my control happens, I expect to live to 120, or maybe way longer, unless something unexpected happens. So that means I have 100 fucking years to make changes, which is a lot of days, a lot of weeks. And I could, how many goals I could set and just increase the reps by one rep per week and still reach those goals well before I die. What my biggest plague was wanting to make changes way too fucking fast. And I suspect that's that plagues a lot of people. So we can change that and just go a little slower. It takes a little patience, but the patience is worth it because the changes stick. And that's the most rewarding thing of all, is when you make a decision and it becomes true, right? I have really am, that's my life right now, is how do I make a change that sticks? And if it takes a couple months, it's fine. Who cares? I've done this job for 10 months and it kind of just fucking zipped by, now that I'm thinking about it. But at 3 months it was kind of rough, but here I am still at it. Everything's going great. You just push, make small changes, don't overdo it. You have a long fucking time. And guess what? If you die unexpectedly sooner than you thought, who fucking cares? At that point, you're dead. You've moved on to a better place. You're gonna be like, oh, okay. Hey, well, before I died, I was doing good. I made plans and I was sticking to those goals. It's all good. Death can be something we talk about another time. We can go really deep into that. At least the way I think about it. I just thought about that a little bit more today. But we will save that for another one. We'll let the unconscious spill what it wants to say then. But for now, I want you to have a good night. Talk to you later.